Professor von Nordweg, you are co-chairing the IUFRO-led Global Forest Expert Panel on Forests and Water, together with Professor Irina Creed. The panel is synthesizing existing scientific information on forests and water that is already out there. Why is this synthesis necessary and relevant?
We realize that it is not about having scientific data by itself. It is how that knowledge is integrated, how it is interpreted, and who knows what and how. So our review is at some level to get the most up-to-date forest hydrological perspective there, but it is also very much about how is society dealing with it. So if we can bring the science on that and that experience of how science is communicated and how knowledge is linked to action in government terms, hopefully we can speed up the learning that not everyone has to reinvent the wheel. For us, the Sustainable Development Goals, it is on one hand, society needs more water, and not just water anytime, but water regular flows and preferably clean water, and no floods and no droughts, but always the right amount of water. That's what people want, and we need even more of that. At the same time, the climate itself is becoming less certain and more variable, and we have more extreme events and more droughts. So we need more buffering. We need more ways that peak events don't lead to floods and that droughts are still buffered by having more. So we need more forest functions, and we actually have less. Yeah. So the way we see the challenge is the demand is increasing. The demand for buffer functions is increasing. The supply of that is going less, and the debates about who controls forest, who controls water is getting more intense.
Professor Creed, why is the interrelationship between forest and water so important? Why do we need to understand it?
Well, that's a fundamental question to our expert panel, and for a millennium people have understood that forests are important source waters for communities downstream, and yet we don't know enough, despite centuries of scientific research, on how forests can regulate those water supplies. In particular, one of the things that seems to have come up more recently is, as science data models become available, is what the forest-water relationship is in terms of water that moves up into the atmosphere. Well, what really framed what we chose to focus on was the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So we knew that our audience was going to be ones of leaders of nations, and how are they going to poise and be ready to address the need to meet those agenda items. And what's really interesting is by understanding who the audience is, it helped frame how we tackled this issue of forest water and the interrelations. And specifically, it meant that we could no longer take approaches that focused mostly on the watershed, as we typically do, but we had to push ourselves to look at transboundary issues and transnational issues, because we knew that the audience were leaders of nations, and they would be looking at how best to meet the targets set out in those agendas.